Nobody in my family sat me down and taught me how to handle money, but I learned anyway. The lesson wasn't in words, it was in what I watched, felt, and absorbed. And I didn't even know I had learned it until I was already living it out in my life. My needs were always met. I want to be clear about that. God has always been the provider of my family. God always provided. This isn't a story about a bad family or a hard childhood. It's about patterns. But money was a grenade in the room. The moment it came up, stress spiked and arguments followed. It was never talked about, especially at the dinner table. 3 generations, same cycle. No plan ever, just reacting to whatever the month brought. And debt was justified by emotion. It's worth it. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. It'll never come around again. I have to say yes. Why would I say no? Buying things on sale, not out of need, but because the deal felt like a win. Nobody was doing this to hurt anyone else. Nobody was being reckless on purpose. These were people doing the best they knew how. But what gets modeled gets passed down. Nobody was trying to teach me anything, and that's the point. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 6 says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." And that works both ways. Godly patterns and broken ones. The moment I had my own money, I ran the same playbook without even realizing it. Paycheck to paycheck, because that's all I knew. That's all I ever knew. But here's what I want you to understand. Money wasn't just stressful. It was literally the main source of stress in my life. Almost everything connected back to it at some level. My life revolved around money, even though I never had much of it. And it was precisely because I didn't know how to hold on to it that it controlled everything. What I wanted to do, but couldn't. What I couldn't do, but wanted to. That tension was constant. Settling for second best, or third best, or fourth best, or way down the line best. Because the what ifs made waiting feel pointless. Emotional spending was the name of the game. Justified purchases all the time, the same way I watched growing up. I can't get this opportunity ever again. It's never going to come again. I got to get it right now. And underneath all of it, I didn't know how to say no to myself or to the moment. Sales language, urgency, limited time. I was controlled by all of it. If something was on sale or felt like a once in a lifetime opportunity, I was in. I didn't have the filter to question it. But that changes. The Lord grew a patience in me that I didn't have before. And with that patience came freedom. And I'll come back to that. But what it was at the end of the day was just flat out irresponsibility. And I own that. And it's important that you understand you have to own and take responsibility for your actions, regardless if it was out of ignorance or not. I chose to do something. I chose to act a certain way. Even though it was part of it was ignorance, I still own up to that. Because if I couldn't own up to that, and if you can't own up to that, you'll never be able to move forward. And the other part was because I watched it throughout my whole life. So part of ignorance, part that's what I absorbed because I watched it my whole life. And the other part was me actually making a decision. My life revolved completely around money. And the less I had, the more it owned me. This is not a budget story. This is an identity story. I didn't see myself as a steward back then, and that was the real problem. The Lord grew and matured me over the years, not overnight. And it wasn't through weeks. It wasn't through months. It was years. The Word of God every day changed how I saw myself, how I saw money, and how I saw my responsibility. Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says, "And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." I wasn't transformed by a new system. I was transformed by a renewed mind. When the identity changed, the behavior had somewhere to go. The behavior naturally followed. So remember when I talked about how the Lord had grew and matured me and my patience, and how I said I would come back to that. Well, this is me coming back to that. Patience. That was something that was never modeled to me growing up when we're talking about money. But it's something the Lord has grown in me. Not perfectly, but leagues better than where I was. I'm no longer controlled by sales language or urgency. I know that there will always be another opportunity, even if I have to wait for it. And if I'm not willing to wait, my heart isn't right to begin with. That's the real test. I can wait on the Lord's timing to have things or not have them, because my identity isn't tied to what I own anymore. 3 generations of the same cycle, and it ends with me. And I don't say any of this in anger. I don't say any of this to put anyone down. My family, who I'm very close with, they were just doing what they knew, and God still provided through them. But now the Lord has molded and shaped me into a steward. And stewards think about what they're leaving behind. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22 says, "A good man leaves an inheritance with his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous." That's the standard I'm building toward. Not perfection, faithfulness. The lessons nobody meant to teach me, I'm unlearning them one day at a time. You might be watching this and recognize your own home in what I just described to you. Nobody failed you on purpose, but the patterns are very real, and they're yours to deal with now, just like they're mine to deal with. The cycle does not have to continue. I want to encourage you on that, because that's the truth. That's not condemnation. It's freedom. It's a call to action from you. Drop a comment. What's one pattern you grew up watching that showed up in your own life? I'll see you in the next one.